Sanjeev from Metablog. In today's video, we are going to talk about two-factor authentication and how you can enable two-factor authentications for your WordPress site. To start with, let's talk about what is two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentications is a method where you enable or you ask for an extra verification from your user before they can log in to your site. Usually the second verification will depend on a random generated code which can be generated by any authentication app. So your users will have a choice whether they want to use a Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator or any other authentication app. As long as the code matches, they will be able to log into your site. Usually these authentication codes are time sensitive, which means the user will have a specific time limit. Under that, they can enter the code and log into your site. Otherwise, they need to use the newly generated code again. So first, let's see how you can enable two-factor authentication on your WordPress site so that your user can take advantage of this additional security mechanism. To enable the two-factor authentication, we are going to use a plugin called WordPress Login Security. So just go to your WordPress dashboard. Under plugins, click add new, and under that search for WordFence. You will see there are multiple plugins listed. The WordFence security plugin is providing overall security, but there is another one which is WordFence login security. You can click on install now, and once it is installed, you can click on activate. So just click on activate. And now the WordFence login security is enabled. You will see a new menu, login security, under your WordPress dashboard. You can click on that and you can go there. Now what you see is a two-factor authentication screen for the user logged in, which is if you are an admin, it will be you. If you are somebody else, they will see it here. They can just scan the QR code and add this two-factor authentication service to their Authenticator app. Along with that, it gives an recovery codes, so user can download the recovery codes and keep it safe with them. In case they lose the access to Authenticator app, they can use these recovery codes to still be able to log in and set up the two-factor authentication again. Having said that, let's go to the general settings and see what are the settings available for your users. You will see the total number of users, how many have activated the two-factor authentication service and how many have that inactive. For this demo site, I don't have many users, but if you are actually a WooCommerce service or you have multiple users, you will see all the numbers here. You can enable or disable two-factor authentication based on roles also. So administrator, you can say all administrator required to have two-factor authentication, because if one of those accounts get leaked or hacked, you will have the most damage. Editors, whether you want to disable or enable, authors, contributors, subscriber, if you have any other custom type of users, you will see all that also here. And this grace period is very important. It says these many number of days are available to the user before they can set two-factor authentication services. So like we have said, administrator is required, and within 10 days they need to set the two-factor authentication for their accounts. This is another option called allow remembering device for 30 days. This means when the user gives the authentication code, he will be prompted or given a checkbox says remember this device. So if you are having a personal device where a user logs in day out, they can check that checkbox to make sure that for next 30 days we will not ask for this two-factor authentication. I always recommend enabling this service. So at the bottom there is an option to enable this two-factor authentication for WooCommerce also. So all the WooCommerce users will be prompted for two-factor authentication setup. The another option which you need to check and make sure it is enabled is NTP. NTP is protocol which allows you to remote time synchronization. And since these two-factor authentication codes are very time sensitive, you need to make sure that the time is properly synced on your server as well as on the user's device, so that the codes will match. If the time is not synced, codes will not match and user will have tough time logging into your site. So make sure it is enabled. Once your settings are done, you can go onto the two-factor authentication screen and scan this QR code with any of your authentication app. So for this demo purpose, we will use Google Authenticator and will scan the code with Google Authenticator. Just open the app, select Get Started, and either you will see set up your first account, or if you already have few accounts, you will have an option to add an account. Just select Scan a QR code. If you have not given the permission to the camera, it will ask for the permission. It scans the QR code. It gives you a code which you can enter on your admin screen. Once the service is enabled, it will ask you to download the recovery codes. You can decide to download the recovery codes. Just make sure that you save these recovery codes properly, because if you lose the access to your Authenticator app, these recovery codes will be the one which will allow you to log in again to this site. If you have lost the access to the recovery codes, you can anytime come back to your admin screen and generate new codes. This will invalidate the existing codes and will give you a new code to download. You can even deactivate the WordPress two-factor authentication, which is currently activate on your account. Once you click the deactivate, it just asks and it will deactivate. If you ever lose the access to your Authenticator app, either try to log in from a known device so that it won't ask you the authentication codes, and come back and deactivate the service and activate again. Otherwise, you have to have access to those recovery codes to be able to log in to your WordPress site. Once you install the WordPress login security, each user under their user profile will get the additional options, which is generating an application password and the 2FA status. They can activate the 2FA from this screen also, or if they are admin, you can manage the 2FA settings also. The application passwords are something which you can use to connect from third-party services, but these application passwords will not be accepted to log into your site. So if there are any third-party service which your site uses and your users has to provide their user information to those third-party services, they can create an application password and use the user ID and this password to log into those services. So a user comes here, he sees the status and he can click on Activate 2FA to activate the two-factor authentication for his user account. He will be brought to the same screen as the login security, where he can easily scan the code and generate the two-factor authentication passcode. So that's all for this video. In this video, we talked about how an admin can enforce two-factor authentication for all the WordPress users. This is one of the key services and I would highly recommend to enable these at least for the admin accounts or priority accounts which have more than just a read access on your site.